This episode was recorded before we received the bittersweet news that Ran Gvili, Zichrono Livracha, the police officer who was killed on October the 7th after saving so many lives, has been returned to Israel after 843 days, closing what I think is the most painful chapter in the history of the State of Israel. Ran is now being brought home for a proper burial, and with no hostages left in Gaza, either living or deceased, we can say, Baruch Atah Adonai Hatov v'Hametiv. Blessed is God who is good and who does good. We know that Pidyon Shbuyim, releasing captives, is a really important mitzvah in the Torah, and whatever our politics, whatever we think about how the war has been conducted, we have all been hoping and praying for their return. So before we start our interview today, I wanted to send my thoughts and condolences to the family of Ran Gvili, to all those who've been affected by this conflict in so many ways, and to the whole Jewish people at this time of such complex and mixed emotions.
Because I was so excited to go to university, to finally be with people that thought the same way as me, because they love my subject as much as I do. And in Freshers Week it was that, and it was amazing, and I felt so excited to go into classes. But from day one, as soon as I raised my voice as a Jew, or not even raised my voice, I just asked them what they meant by a comment, my case has not been fully investigated even yet.
Was your case verbal abuse?
Verbal abuse, verbal threats. I have proof of all of it. I have harassment, hate crime, threats, everything you can think of, doxing, and proof of all of it, given it to the university, but no action's been taken. And I'm pretty sure there's been, apart from a speech about bullying, any reprimand to anyone in my class. Which leaves me thinking, do they think it's wrong? Because if they can't tell the people that it's wrong, they're just going to continue doing it and think it's okay.
This is Women's Gallery, the podcast where we showcase women defining Jewish leadership today. My name's Joanne Greenaway, and each episode I interview one female leader making a mark in her own way on the Jewish community. We explore different models of leadership globally in the context of schools, shuls, universities, Batei Din, and much more. And this week we are focusing on the online space and the sphere of activism, both on campus and beyond and online. And I'm very, very excited to welcome to the podcast Tali Smus. It's really great to have you with me, Tali.
It's great to be here. Thanks so much for asking me on.
So Tali is known online as the British Zioness, and she is an unapologetic Jew. She is a passionate Zionist, and she is a prominent advocate for Jewish pride in Israel. And it was really important for me to get to know her, to have her on. I think it's something a little bit different, but something that's super important for all of us to hear about. Tali was born and raised in London in a religious Jewish home, and she has become one of the leading figures in the fight against anti-Semitism on UK campuses as part of a new generation who are confronting anti-Semitism head on. She's still a university student and president of the Students Supporting Israel at King's College London, where she plays a leading role in combating anti-Semitism through initiatives such as Stop the Hate on Campus, as well as individually through her writing and increasingly through the public speaking that she does. She is challenging apathy, and she's addressing the realities of modern anti-Semitism, which I really want to explore with her, because increasingly she is both working on her own but also inspiring others to stand up proudly for their identity in what can be extremely hostile environments. And alongside her activism and being a student, she is a creative artist who also focuses on using her work to express resilience, unity, and Jewish pride. Tali and I will explore various areas, including how she found her voice, how she advocates, and what the reality is really like today on campus. And I want to think through with her what these generational divides are that make the different generations see the reality through quite different lenses. So Tali, welcome again. Thank you. Let's start with your public speaking, because I'm really intrigued, particularly, if I may say, how it's super impressive that somebody at your stage, and you're making me feel very old, so I don't want to dwell or labour this point, but how you have become such a powerful public speaker while still a student. I'm interested to know whether that's something that you've had any training for, whether that's something that just comes naturally to you, or whether it's something that you've kind of honed and developed through your activism or with any professional help?
So I've always been, so to speak, a loud person. Like in school, I was always part of like the school shows and all those sort of things because I loved putting my voice out there. But I hadn't had any training. It wasn't something that I thought about. It's not something I thought I would ever have to do. I honestly went to university because I was like, I want to study. And then unfortunately, I was met with an unfair and uncomfortable reality where I was targeted for being Jewish, for being a Zionist, for supporting the state of Israel's existence, full stop. And that's really hard when it's something that you believe so strongly and something that you haven't even questioned yourself. It really led me to speak out because I was like, if they're going to hate me before I even open my mouth, I might as well speak up and support what I believe in the public sphere. Because honestly, there's not enough people doing it. It's not something that's widely talked about, the student sphere with anti-Semitism. I feel like students are left to wait for someone else to share their story. And I think it's time that we took back that narrative and ensured that we can actually say what's happening on campus and show why someone has to act, why something has to happen. And that's, I really think, how I developed into my activism and how I developed into speaking. I think I'm constantly developing. Every speech shows you something new, every opportunity, everyone you meet. And so I think I'm constantly chopping and changing, but in the most positive way possible.
It sounds very brave, to be honest. It would be good to hear a bit more detail about what that reality actually looks like on campus and what kind of hate you encountered, because people need to understand what's going on out there and how you're addressing it. I'd love to hear more from you about your experience, because we in the UK have heard so many stories, terrible stories about student experiences on campus, and even more so, I would say, in the US, where there was such a huge outcry leading to the investigations about the heads of Columbia, Harvard, etc., with all the toxic infiltration right at the top, which was in the press so much. I think the UK less so, but the students that I'm in touch with say very different things. Some have had a really hard time, but then others seem to be getting on with their student lives as if they're totally fine, maybe because they have strong networks of Jewish students around them and they just have strength in numbers. I'm really interested to know your perspective about how bad things actually are right now on campus.
So I think that, like, because you said, like, there's lots of differing views and differing experiences. And I think that's very much the case, because one student can go through university and have absolutely no problem and have a fantastic time. And I'm so glad that they're able to do that. But then another will have hardships from day one till day whatever number, that's the end. And that's why people are like, so is it really happening? Or is it just like one or two people who are making a big deal out of it? It's not. Unfortunately, anti-Semitism is very, very prevalent on UK campuses.
Particularly in London, where you are, do you think?
I think that in London, it's harder because there's less of a universal community. In campus towns like Birmingham, Leeds, Nottingham, those sort of universities, there's either like a Hillel house or they're like meeting for Shabbat meals every week, etc., etc. So they have a very solid community, which I think is very helpful and supportive. I don't think it means there's any less or more anti-Semitism. I think it's just possibly easier to cope with or deal with. But I don't know. I don't know if it's got London campuses or other campuses. I just do know that across both, unfortunately, there is a lot of anti-Semitism. I've spoken to many students who have like little stories, but they're not little because every story is valid, but they're too little for media to pick up or media to care or anyone to listen.
Microaggressions.
Exactly. But they're not microaggressions because it's still people feeling uncomfortable in their class. It's still people not telling their classmates they're Jewish or they're Israeli. Or when they ask where they're from, they'll use some random past ancestral roots just to not say Israel or Jewish.
These things are dangerous, aren't they? Because people just gradually suppress their identity and don't even realise that it's coming from external influences. And then we've internalized the anti-Semitism.
Exactly. And I think that's so sad that university, a place where we're meant to be educated, we're meant to be able to be ourselves and be accepted for who we are, that Jews aren't allowed to be. Because I was so excited to go to university, to finally be with people that like thought the same way as me because they love my subject as much as I do. And for in Freshers Week, it was that, and it was amazing, and I felt so excited to go into classes. But from day one, as soon as I raised my voice as a Jew, or not even raised my voice, I just asked them what they meant by a comment.
Are you studying a humanities subject? Sometimes they seem worse.
Yeah. So that is a difference between humanities and STEM. That STEM is often less difficult because the people want to just focus on their work, and it takes too much of their brain either way to like actually do the work. So they don't have time or care to be anti-Semitic or care about the politics of Israel.
Not necessarily engaging with the issues of the world.
Yeah.
But people confuse issues around Israel-Palestine with the issues that they're meant to be discussing. It seems to somehow take on this disproportionate level of interest where it shouldn't be.
Exactly. And I think there's definitely a time and a space for political discussions, and that is 100% correct, especially in university. But I think it has to be in a safe place where people feel safe to communicate and in a safe setting and not forced upon a person. It has to be something that we agree on and have a civil conversation with boundaries, not an attack.
Have you been supported by the university staff, the authorities?
Unfortunately, not so much. My department is incredible. They have been very supportive and very there for me and helping me with the adjustments that I've had to make. But the university itself, unfortunately, has not. My case has not been fully investigated even yet.
Was your case verbal abuse?
Verbal abuse, verbal threats. I have proof of all of it. I have harassment, hate crime, threats, everything you can think of, doxing, and proof of all of it, given it to the university, but no action's been taken. And I'm pretty sure there's been, apart from a speech about bullying, any reprimand to anyone in my class, which leaves me thinking, do they think it's wrong? Because if they can't tell the people that it's wrong, they're just going to continue doing it and think it's okay.
I think it sounds like you're one of the rare people who doesn't really suffer from any kind of imposter syndrome. And so many women, I'm sure it's not only women, but so many women do feel they need credentials before they speak up. And I think it is rare to find somebody who's bold enough to go out there and unashamedly speak up for what she believes. And I'm sure by doing that, you give other people permission to kind of follow in those footsteps.
So my bio, as you know, is proud Jew, proud Zionist, student, activist. I don't claim to have any qualifications in any of these things. I do my best to educate myself as much as I can. I go on different courses, different things to try educate myself as much as possible because I know that it is really important to understand what you're talking about and to continue growing in your knowledge. But it definitely is hard that sometimes you feel like, oh, why should anyone listen to little old me? Like, who am I? But sometimes you just have to not let that win, because then you're just letting yourself be shut down and letting yourself be told to keep quiet. When sometimes you just have to be like, no, I have a voice. I have something I want to say. I'm going to say it.
Yeah, I think sometimes the more you educate yourself and the more you know, the more you realize how much more there is to know, and that can sometimes feed into imposter syndrome. And so I admire your gutsiness to just go out and say, I am who I am the age I am, take me as I am, and there's something valuable and worthwhile that I can do with my voice. It may be there's still people who turn around and say, you know, she's so young, what does she know? But who cares?
Yeah. If you keep listening to the haters, all you're going to do is hate. If you listen to the lovers and you listen to yourself, you'll learn to love. So.
Good for you. So let's talk about the social media side of things. I've seen you on Instagram, where you have a big following and you seem to be very active. I personally am on Facebook because I'm of that generation, and I'm on Instagram and I'm on LinkedIn, but I don't know if you're doing anything on TikTok, on Twitter, maybe you're on those platforms as well. And I know that you've also written for newspapers, and there's a lot of content on your website with some tremendous articles. I'm interested in terms of your strategy, how you navigate social media. How do you choose which is the right platform for you? Which is the place where you think you're going to be able to have an impact? How does one make the most impact online?
So I really do enjoy writing, and I do enjoy writing articles, but writing articles is something that you can do, but it's very hard to place them. It has to fit a certain narrative, it has to fit a certain word length. It's something that someone else controls. So as much as I love doing it, I'm not always able to share what I want to share, which is why I usually tend to go more social media with Instagram.
It's more immediate as well. When you're writing an article, there's a time lag. I'm just
Yeah,
writing a Parsha column for the national newspaper and I write them 4 weeks ahead, and it's hard to connect what the content you want to share is with what's happening in the world and what people are going to care about in 4 weeks' time.
exactly. So that's why I usually lean more to my social media, to my Instagram. Why I chose Instagram, what I knew. That's literally what started it. I never expected it to do as well as it has, and I'm incredibly grateful for all the support that I have been getting. I do have a vast array of followers. I do know that I have quite a few Christian followers. I do believe I have, at the moment, I know of Iranian followers because they've reached out to me, and the support that they've sent.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's great, by the way, that you're using your platform to advocate for the Iranian cause and Iranian women, because they've been such amazing allies for us, and you're part of what is a really sizable Jewish presence at the protests supporting the Iranians and being allies their way. And I think if globally it's not known or it's not happening elsewhere, that's definitely a really visible and critical part of this Iranian protest in the centre of London right now.
Yeah, I think it's really important that they've always stood with us. And even if they hadn't, there are people that are being terrorized and being shut down for no reason because there's a terrorist organization running them. And I think it's so important that people stand up for them, because at the moment they're completely in blackout. They have no way to contact us to tell us what's happening. So if we're not going to stand for them, who's going to stand for them?
Going back to your platform and what you post, it seems very grassroots and very authentic. So I'm assuming that you've just learned to do your thing, do it your way. And I know that you do get a lot of support, but I'm assuming, and I'd like to hear more, but I'm assuming you do also get a lot of pushback because it's been such a feature of the online world over the last couple of years. And so many people have been fighting trolls and hate and criticism. And I'm really curious to know how you navigate that. And I say that because it can really be overwhelming. And I admire what you're doing. And in a way, I admire it because my focus is really much more as an educator and as part of an educational organization where we're in the business of hope and in the business of keeping people optimistic and looking forward and building a positive identity. And I haven't been spending huge amounts of time fighting haters online, but those that have been are doing a tremendous service to the rest of the community. But I can imagine it's extremely overwhelming and disheartening and gets you down. And I'm really interested to hear what your experience has been.
So my policy is I don't respond to comments. I know lots of people do, and they are very well spoken and they do it really well and show their points very clearly. But to me, if I engage, I'm giving them legitimacy. And I have no interest in giving them legitimacy. So I don't respond to comments. I sometimes will make a video about certain comments or messages that I've gotten just to highlight sometimes either the ignorance of people that are fighting it, are trying to argue, or unfortunately the amount of threats and disgusting things that people will say just because you're Jewish or you're a Zionist, because I didn't know that my looks were attributed to me being Jewish or Zionist, but apparently.
What's the Zionist look then?
Exactly, right? So that's my policy. I try to not let those things get in my head, but sometimes they obviously do. And honestly, it can be really, really difficult. And to anyone who is struggling with social media and like the impact it has on them, do not think you're alone, that because other people aren't talking about it. It's really, really hard. And sometimes I'm like, what's the point? Why am I doing this? But then I have that one person that will come up to me in the street and say, honestly, thank you so much for everything you're doing. We feel so much more supported, so happy that you're doing it, and we appreciate it so much. And that's what keeps me going, because I don't care about, as in, obviously, I'd love to change the world, right? But I'm not changing the world by posting on social media. But if I can change one person, not even change them, make them feel more supported and happy and strong in their identity, then I'm doing something great.
But it also has to be sustainable, and you need to make sure that you're supported and happy. And I can imagine if you do read through all of the comments, and if they are many, many, many comments that are nasty and hateful, it can get you down. So I would like to think that you have support around you to keep going with the work that you're doing.
I do, thank God. I have a fantastic family. I have great friends who are there for me. They're constantly telling me to stop reading the comments because there's no point. But I will definitely admit, it is very, very hard a lot of the time. And it definitely does impact me as a person, me as my mindset, my happiness. But I think that you take the time to yourself when you need it, which is what I do. So sometimes, some weeks I'll post less because I want to have less time on social media. And then there's some weeks that I feel embiggered, so I'll post much more.
Yeah. My only point of comparison thinking back is when I worked on difficult get cases in the Bet Din, I would sometimes be the recipient of really, really nasty, abusive emails from get refuser husbands that I was tracking down and chasing, and they didn't really like my involvement because I was onto them. And sometimes it was really scary. You know, sometimes people find out where you live, and it can be very personal. And sometimes it really made me stop and reconsider. But I felt that having support around me, even if it's not formal supervision like therapists get, but having kind of support and working in collaboration with others was really, really important. I'm wondering whether in your role, you're very much a one man, one woman influencer, because influencers, advocates do often work like that. But do you see the value in working with others? Are you at all involved in collaborations, whether it's with other influencers, whether it's with other organizations, either to support you or to have more impact by working in less of a siloed way?
So no, 100%. I think there's a part for a one-woman mission, but there's also an importance of collaboration. But I think it's really important whether a specific thing is working individually or with someone else. We're all working towards the same thing. We're all fighting the same battle. And I think that is incredibly important, knowing that other people have your back and you have other people's back. It should be a supportive circle rather than a competitive. And thank God it is a supportive circle. I've met with a lot of other advocates, a lot of other influencers who are much bigger than me, have been doing this for way longer, have way more experience. But they'll turn to me and say, well done for what you're doing. And that is the best thing I could ask for.
I think also just being able to give shout outs to or cross-refer to other influencers or to other organizations in your own feed can help both you and can help others. I'm thinking of someone like Dov Foreman, who's a friend and who's a brilliant influencer who's in your space, who I'm sure would be supportive, and vice versa. So even if people are working as individuals, there are ways of helping each other to build your own following.
100%. And that's why I do collaborations with individual influencers. Which honestly is such fun because first of all, you're sharing ideas, you're learning what their like usual route to posting is, and you just learn so much from each other. And a lot of the time, it's influences in like different but overlapping spheres, which is really fun. So they'll have like a different focus, either being like, let's say I'm friends with a Christian Zionist. So when we made a video, it was about Jewish Christian collaboration. So that was really fun. So getting to know her side of it, why she was doing what she was doing, why she was there. And we got to learn from each other. But then also with organizations, it's really important because that is like the supervisory support kind of thing, like you said, which is really useful and impactful because they can give you a lending hand and help you out and also just be there for you, but also teach you and help educate you and give you different opportunities. Like so many organizations, for example, Stop the Hate, which is an incredible organization. they gave me opportunities to speak, and that's how I started public speaking. Stand With Us took me to the House of Lords to do a roundtable discussion, and that's how I got into the parliamentary sphere. Camera UK, who I'm doing a fellowship with, are an incredible organisation that helps call out the inaccuracies in media, and so they've helped me understand and know how to fight misinformation and disinformation, and introduce me to amazing people. They're there to support you, they're there to help you, and I think it's super important that they are there, and I'm super grateful that they are there.
Excellent. Let me zoom out for a minute and ask you a little bit more about attitudes towards Israel. And I don't want to connect. I'm not a believer that anyone's attitudes or statements towards Israel are in any way a cause of anti-Semitism, because I think that anti-Semitism is there always looking for an excuse. But I am really fascinated to better understand the generational differences that we have when it comes to attitudes towards Israel. And I say this because colleagues of mine are very much involved in research, looking at how to adapt Israel education, for example. But from my understanding, there is a large proportion of Jewish students and young Jews who are standing up more proudly for Israel than ever before since October the 7th. But there are more than 50% in the UK who don't identify as Zionist anymore, which is a astounding, staggering statistic, actually. Particularly, maybe I'm naive, but for those of us who sit in the more engaged part of the community, that is a reality that needs to be faced. And it seems that the community is ever more polarised. And I think that plays out when it comes to trips to Israel, when there are parts of the community, youth groups, who are still continuing on their way as if nothing's really changed in terms of the reality on the ground, and going to Israel and having great experiences. And then there are more than 50% who are either not engaging with Israel, or there are some who are engaging in more left-wing discourse and going to protective shield missions to support Palestinians. And, that's a whole other conversation. But I wonder how this kind of polarization resonates with your experience of the young people in your generation.
So I think the term Zionist has been twisted, because Zionist does mean different things to different people. But I'll say what my understanding of the word Zionist is. The word Zionist is that we believe that there's an indigenous right for a Jewish state in our homeland. So that there should be a Jewish state. That doesn't mean there shouldn't be another state. That doesn't disregard anyone else's indigeneity. It just means that I believe there should be a Jewish state. So when people call themselves anti-Zionist, to me, that's inherently anti-Semitic, because it means they believe Israel shouldn't exist, that there shouldn't be a Jewish state. So what I think a lot of people might mean, but I can't put words in their mouth, but I will say what I think. What they might mean when they call themselves anti-Zionist is that they don't agree with the way that Israel governs themselves and reacts to the Palestinian question, so to speak. That is fine. That is absolutely allowed. That is absolutely normal, because that is what politics is.
Right. And we need to clarify that we are absolutely proud Zionists who can engage in critical discourse and be part of the conversation about making Israel the kind of state that we want it to be. I totally agree with you that that should not be confused with anti-Zionism.
Exactly. And that's what's a really big problem at the moment, is that people think that Zionist means there's no right for anyone else. We want everyone dead. That's all it should be. Like Jewish supremacy. But it's not. It just means that we feel that we should have a homeland. And the twisting of the narrative throws it in our face, because then you can't proudly stand as a Zionist because they have a different definition of Zionism. What I find very important is they can't put their definition on me, because you can't tell me what I believe. I can say what I believe, and I can tell you what I believe, but you have to be respectful enough to listen and let me tell you, rather than you tell me. And I think that's the generational shift. I think since October 7th, since everything that's happened recently, there has been that shift, and people are trying to put their definitions on us, on Jews. So even when Jews call themselves anti-Zionist, a lot of the time, I don't believe they are truly anti-Zionist. I think they don't agree with the government. I think they don't agree with how the politics are shaping. But it doesn't mean they don't believe that Israel has a right to exist. again, I can't put my words on them, but that's what I believe.
So what do you think needs to be done to bring this such a large swathe of a whole generation back within the conversation such that they identify with Zionism?
I think we need to take back the term Zionism and Zionist, which is why I go with the term Zioness, because I'm taking it back. I'm not letting other people's definitions define me. I'm defining myself. And I'm proudly standing with my definition. And in educating people and spreading the awareness and understanding of what Zionism truly means to us, hopefully it will smallen the disparity between us. Because once they understand that, oh, wait, right, Jews can have a home, that's fine. So you're a Zionist. That's what people don't understand. And it's really funny because you'll have a conversation with them and they'll be like, no, I agree with that. I'm like, so do you know that makes you a Zionist? They're like, no, of course not. So that's what we have to try. We have to try create an understanding. We're fighting a misinformation and disinformation war, and we have to fight that battle. It's an uphill battle, but we have to try. Because if we don't try, the disparity is just going to grow bigger.
You make it sound so simple.
It's not.
But we know, well, but it's not, because we know that with the algorithms and the way in which social media works and the way in which the narrative has been manipulated, it can feel like we're fighting a losing battle because understandings of just the core terminology have been totally misappropriated. And I see that even in my generation. Again, I'm just making myself feel very old, but the work that I've done with on an interfaith basis, when I talk about bridging the gaps between us and the Muslim leadership in London, even bringing up the term Zionism with people who want to be allies and supporters, it's a losing battle. Zionism, even for them, has become such a dirty word.
And that's what we have to change. And I'm not saying it's easy. It sounds easy. It's not, trust me. But that's the education side of it. We do have to increase the education on the thing and not let social media, okay, I shouldn't say this, I'm a social media person, but we can't let social media rule the narrative, because there's a lot of anti-Semitic and truly anti-Zionist rhetoric out there on social media, and that's what we're fighting, because that's what most of the youth of today are taking in. That's how they're learning.
Are you engaging with people across the religious spectrum, would you say, within the Jewish community? Do you see differences in terms of those who are in the more progressive religious space compared to the more orthodox, that it's a different fight that you're fighting?
100%. But I also think that, here's my policy. I'm religious. I don't care if you're religious, if you're not, if you're conservative, if you're orthodox, if you're secular, if you don't identify with being a Jew. I don't care. That's your identity, and I'm not going to argue with it or try to change it. I know what mine is, and that's what I'm going to stand with, and that's how I'm going to talk from my experiences. But I know that there's a disparity in the different things, and I do try engage with everyone, and I discuss it with people, and I try to hear what they feel and why they think what they think, and then I try to have an educated discussion. Sometimes it can be phenomenal, and it can have a great outcome, and you can have any friends. Because even if you disagree on some things, there's some core principles that you'll agree on, and you'll also agree to disagree. But if people aren't ready to listen or ready to have a conversation and question their own beliefs, then there's nothing that we can do.
Yeah, that's really important. I think sometimes we preach to the converted, or we stick within our own bubbles, and we certainly at LSJS try and bring together, for example, madrachim from the different youth movements to come together before they take Israel tours, so that they can share different understandings and they can bridge the divides, because otherwise there is such a gulf in terms of the way in which they relate to Israel that it can be really problematic unless they engage with each other. It's really hard.
No, it's really hard, but I think continuing to stand for it and continuing to fight shows we're winning, in the way that we're not letting the downfalls be downfalls. We're letting them be learning curves. We're letting them be steps, learning steps, and helping us move forward rather than giving up. And I think that's a win, because it shows that we really care, and it shows that we want things to be better.
Tali, I want to ask you in particular about women, and again without stereotyping. And I'm trying very hard not to stereotype when it comes to generations and when it comes to male, female, but you're a fantastic female spokesperson. But I think very often women do speak more apologetically, more softly, more cautiously. Women's style when it comes to leadership can be very effective. I wonder whether you think that women do play a particularly important role at the moment to confront the kind of extremism we're facing in their own particular way in this time of polarization and anti-Semitism. Do you see it that way? Do you see yourself as like a particularly women's voice? Or is that a generalization that's not helpful?
I think a bit of both. I very much stand as an advocate of being a strong woman. Like, I'm a woman, hear me roar. Like, I will not take anything from people who will say, oh, you're just a woman. No.
Is that your subtitle? I like it.
Like, that's why I went with the term Zioness, because I am a Zioness. I'm a female Zionist, and that's what it means to me. And I'm very, very proud of that. And I do think it's so important for women to also stand up and show everyone that we can have a voice, but only if you're comfortable. I don't think any woman should feel any pressure that there's not enough female voices. Maybe I should say something. 100% if a woman is comfortable to stand up and speak, do it. You will have support, and I will support you. But I don't want any woman to feel pressured, because it can be scary, and there is the fact that we can be in more danger by being public figures and standing up. And I do think about that a lot. And I know that I will make sure that I have people around me at events and people who know where I am when I'm at protests, because I'm in more danger. And I 100% admit that and acknowledge it. And sometimes it can be really, really scary. But it doesn't stop me from standing up for what I believe as a woman, as a Jew, as a Zionist. So I do speak as a woman's woman, but I also still speak as a person. And I think that's really important, that I'm not putting myself in a box. I don't like boxes. So I'm going to be who I am, when I want to, how I want to, and no one is going to tell me different.
I love it.
I think we have to remember the past and let it fuel us, because we don't want to repeat of the past. That's not what we want. That's not what humanity wants. We want to evolve. We want to become better. So remembering the past and talking to people with the experience of the past is so important, because they can almost tell you what they did wrong to help you not make the same mistakes, but also tell you what they did right to get us to where we are now.
Mm-hmm. Are you hopeful in terms of the UK? You've talked a lot about the dangers that are out there, and a lot of people at the moment are talking about Aliyah, both in the UK and elsewhere. There was actually something in the paper today about America encouraging English people, I shouldn't laugh, encouraging English Jews to seek refuge in America as a safe haven. I'm not sure what you think about that. I can tell you my views, but there is certainly a wave of Aliyah from people who are worried about the future. What do you think about the future? Are you there for the long haul to support Anglo Jewry to fight anti-Semitism? Do you think the anti-Semitism will reduce if we keep fighting it?
I think we're at a pivotal point right now, and now is the time for change. It might have been yesterday, it might have been the day before, but we can't change that. So to me, today is the day for change, and tomorrow will be the day for change. And I hope to be that here for the long haul, to fight the fight and make England the amazing place it was for Jews to live and to thrive. But I can definitely understand why people are making Aliyah. I know friends, family that are doing it because they don't feel safe. And even though I right now can be here and standing up for Britain and trying to change it and make it better, I'm not thinking about raising children yet. So when I do, that's a whole other conversation. Am I ready to raise children in this environment? I'm not sure. I'll have to wait and see when, at the time, if that's the right thing for me. And I also have to, as you said, put my mental health and my health and my safety there. It's really important. So I really hope for the UK, because we are an incredible country. And I think that we can be so much better than we are right now. And I think that Jews can and should feel safe again. we have to fight for it, unfortunately. And I am here for the fight. And I really, really hope that it will change. But I do admit that there's a part of me that thinks there might be a day where I'll have to make not have to. Do you know what? I'll be really grateful to make Aliyah. But you know what I mean.
I'm grateful for your optimism because, you know, that is spoken like a true activist. That's really what you are, and you're doing a great job. So I wish you strength and hatzlacha to continue fighting the good fight, and to thank you on behalf of the UK Jewish community for what you're doing to strengthen us. Keep going. And thank you so much for joining me today on Women's Gallery. Thank you also to all our Women's Gallery listeners for listening, for engaging, for sending me your feedback and comments, which I really, really appreciate as we grow this community. So I look forward to hearing from you, and keep on rating, reviewing and following me and LSJS on Facebook and on our website. Thank you.